It's exotic and romantic with a taste of sun-drenched lands past the southern horizon. Giant platters laced with salsa, dripping with melted cheese, washed down with icy cerveza. We call it Mexican food. So it may surprise you that a platter full of the most famous items on the menu aren't exactly Mexican.
We down here call it Tex-Mex. Tex-Mex food is Mexican food that's been doctored up by the Texans.
Fajitas and margaritas and chips and salsa, chili con queso. Most of the dishes that are really what we think of as Mexican food in the United States were all invented along the border or in Texas.
In the 1800s, the United States gobbled up a lot of territory that once belonged to Mexico. Texas in 1845, California, Arizona, and New Mexico in 1848. A new flag was flying over these lands, but the menu was pretty much the same. Tacos, fried foods, and simple salsas. Cheap ranch food borrowed from the plains of west central Mexico.
Yes, but I smell frijoles.
There has been a continuous exchange between the major cities and the major Mexican communities of Texas with their homeland that's pretty much unaffected by the borders.
Northern Mexicans who crossed the border found work cooking for cattle ranch cowboys. But now they were cooking with new flavors brought to the border states by the North American railroads.
American cheese, the lard that a lot of the things were fried in, these came from the American side of the border. So American tastes and American influences started to change the way Mexican food was prepared.
In the growing Texas cities, Mexican Americans made a living selling street food to the gringos.
Some of the most famous street vendors were the chili queens of San Antonio, who were flirtatious young Mexican girls who flirted with the cowboys and the soldiers and brought them to their mama's food stands, which were tables set up in Military Square. The other famous vendors were tamale vendors who pushed carts through the streets. They all had distinctive songs. You could tell your tamale vendor was coming by hearing this song.
But by 1910, the sanitary reforms of the so-called progressive era had chased the food vendors from the sidewalks.
The first inspections for restaurants and rules for food handling came into being, and those rules pretty much put the street vendors out of business. Mexican restaurants replaced the street vendors.
The new restaurants all claimed to serve authentic Mexican food.
There was no attempt at authenticity. That wasn't the point. The point was to please the gringo palate. This chili gravy is like no sauce you'll ever see in a Mexican restaurant anywhere else. It's like brown gravy with a little bit of comino and chili powder in it. So it tastes like the brown gravy you get on a Salisbury steak, you know, in a cafeteria with a little bit of spice in it. It was geared for American tastes.
Like any ethnic cuisine, Mexican food was also altered by the creative genius of a handful of entrepreneurs, like Monica Flynn. Flynn was a true Tex-Mex pioneer, born to a Mexican mother and a French father in Tucson, Arizona in 1882. She opened her restaurant, El Charro, in 1922, and that is where she claimed to invent the chimichanga. The story goes that one day, Flynn was bustling around a busy kitchen full of family, rushing to make a customer a burrito. She stumbled and knocked the burrito into a deep fryer.
She went to say a swear word, which even now and in those times, grandmas and aunts just didn't swear in front of children, and quickly changed her swear word into, ay, chimichanga, instead of what she was going to say.
When Monica fished the burrito out of the fryer, she got a pleasant surprise. The outside had been fried a delicate, flaky golden brown.
What's fun about this dish? This is crispy, this is nice, moist flavor. Take these together, and you can blend this with a little bit of the sauce, with a little bit of the sour cream, with a little bit of the guacamole, frijolitos de olla. Delicioso.
In the early 1950s, the chimichanga became the signature dish of El Charro
Welcome to El Charro. I see you're having a chimichanga combination platter.
and has remained that way ever
Which
since.
flavor did you get? People come here, I want one of those thingamajigs. Oh, okay. I mean, I know what they're talking about. We do. And when we present it to them, that's what I came for. And they're happy and they love it.
As the chimichanga became the entree that ate Tucson, Mexican food was gearing up to go national. Once again, it was a combination of vision, appetite, and ambition that did it, with a little help from the hamburger. The hamburger? In 1948, the McDonald brothers launched their landmark restaurant concept in San Bernardino, California. Local resident Glenn Bell was such a big fan that he opened his own burger joint down the road. Within a few years, Bell taught himself how to make crisp, pre-shaped taco shells using his French fryer. Soon, he was out of the burger business for good. In 1954, he opened Taco Tia, the precursor to Taco Bell. Mexican food was making its way into the heartland, so effectively in some cases that its origins were forgotten.
People in Cincinnati had 6 ways of talking about chili, none of which mentioned anything that was in it, like a 2-way and a 3-way, and thought chili was a Cincinnati dish made by Greeks, and didn't quite understand that people in the Southwest ate chili, or let alone people in Mexico.
The fajita, too, was a border specialty, a grilled snack popular with Texas ranch hands who were often paid in beef as well as cash. Turned from local secret into vendor snacks in the 1960s, and then picked up by restaurants everywhere. But the greatest success story of all Mexican foods may be the humble nacho. Every famous food has its myth of origin. For the nacho, it's been claimed that the story actually goes back to a man named, yes, Nacho. Actually the nickname for his given name of Ignacio.
My grandfather was Ignacio, my father Ignacio, I'm Ignacio, my son Ignacio, and we have a nephew by the name of Ignacio. So there's nachos, several nachos.
In the 1940s, Nacho Anaya Sr. was manager of a popular restaurant in Piedras Negras, Mexico, just across the border from the U.S. Army base in Eagle Pass. One afternoon in 1943, a group of Army officers' wives stopped in at Nacho's place. The kitchen was closed, so Nacho whipped up a simple snack. Melted cheddar cheese and onions on some tortilla chips and brought them to the table. The ladies liked them so much, they asked Anaya for seconds.
Nacho, he says, what do you call this? I don't know. He said, I'll be right back. The orders are burning, so let me bring him back another plate. So he did. By the time he came back to the table with another dozen or 15 nachos on the plate, she had the name for them, Nachos Specials.
But in the story of American Eats, the most important question is often not who made it first, but who made money off of it. In 1976, concession sales were slow at Arlington Stadium, home of the Texas Rangers. Someone suggested adding nachos to the menu, but concession supplier Frank Liberto was skeptical.
The way Ignacio Anaya made them was so labor-intensive and so time-intensive that you wait a long period of time to get an order, and because of the cost, it just was being prohibitive.
But Liberto was intrigued, so he cooked up a light cheese topping that was semi-liquid even at room temperature, and started serving the chip and cheese combo in 1977. At first, his customers were puzzled.
They'd come by and say, "What do you got there? Why are you heating the mustard? What kind of pickles are those?" And then I'd make them an order, and gosh, what do you call this? Nachos? Nachos?
Liberto didn't know what to call them. The football crew came to town.
Howard Cosell and Dandy Dan Meredith were the hosts, and at one game, Howard Cosell says, "Did you go back to the press reception area and taste that stuff they got out there tonight?" And Meredith says, "Yeah." And what do you call it? Isn't it nachos or something? And they start saying, "Oh, it's nachos, nachos, not nachos." So then the next thing you knew, for about, I'd say 6 weeks to 2 months on Monday Night Football, they'd say, "Did you see that run? Man, that was nachos all the way." And they were just mixing this newfound word into all of their conversations, and I just said, "Hey, we're going to go with it, whatever it means."
Within 2 years, 1 in every 3 ballpark customers at Arlington were buying nachos, while only 1 in 14 bought popcorn, the reliable old standby. Today, ballpark nachos are as popular as restaurant nachos. Purists might complain that the ballpark version is counterfeit cuisine, but they can't argue with the success.
I've made peace with nachos, I've made peace with fajitas. My husband may not have, but I have, and I am the cook, so it's okay.
A life you thought you knew. The tale of a personality